he painted it as we were earning the presence of God. So when we first went to Colorado, I had found out that he basically introduced to us his first 13-year-old wife. And what he said to us, he actually said, the Lord and Father had to work with me for a long time on this one. He acted like this was a requirement of the Lord to start taking these younger ladies to wife. And in my mind, at that time, I didn't even question it. I didn't even think about it being a little girl. In my mind, I thought, she must be somebody so special. The Lord thinks that she's so mature and to be able to enter the celestial law at this young age. That is what my mindset was at the time. And it's crazy to me now, but that shows how brainwashed you can be. And so I knew of one of them, but when we went to Texas, she didn't come. But after a while, then all of a sudden, 2 or 3 of them would show up on the land. And then another time on another visit when he came, 3 of them would come with it, whatever. They started popping up here and there. Pretty soon, he actually moved them all there. So by the time the raid happened, then I want to say all of his younger ladies were there or had been there at least once, because he still had the Colorado land. He still had, and now the South Dakota land was getting built as well. And so, he had family in all 3 of those places. Warren's family has never been under one roof since he became the prophet. So we've always been scattered wherever we were told to go. So we have these younger ladies getting married and getting pregnant. I didn't think anything of it. Like I said, I thought it was just that they were special and so mature and all that. But when the raid happened, and I don't know if he did this because maybe he was starting to feel guilty for the way he had treated me, but he allowed me to take care of another lady's little baby. She was 12 months old, and he had her leave the land. This little girl's mother left the land with another one of her children to go work with that child to help him be more obedient. But now he required of this lady that sacrifice to separate from her young child. And she was only 12 months old. And this 12-month-old child was left in my care. This is the one lady that I told you she's kind of related to me, distantly related. So I was taking care of this. Well, I had taken care of this little girl for about a year. Her mother had come back. But when the raid happened, she was gone to see Warren in Kingman. So I had her at the time the raid happened. And when I think back on the raid, I had one thing in my mind, and it was to take care of this little girl. I didn't try to get into all the business of what was happening and why they were there and what they were doing. She was my priority. And I stuck right with her. That was my whole focus through the whole thing. But I was taken off the land with her. When we had communication still, I talked with her mother once, and she said, whatever happens, don't let them take her from you. And I said, they don't want the little ones. They want the older girls. Because by that time, we could realize that's what was happening. And she's like, they want all the children. And I just burst into tears. It was very stressful. We went through the experience of going to the different places they had us go to. The sleeping conditions weren't good. The food wasn't the greatest. The bathroom conditions and showering was horrible. Like I didn't shower for 3 or 4 days because you couldn't, and you didn't have clothes. And it was a big ordeal to try to get the people that were back on the land to send us some clothes so that we could get cleaned up. And we were hard to deal with. We wouldn't give any information. I will say that. There's a thing in the FLDS, mum is the word. And that was what we were told to do. So like by the time I went into this little interview with some people, I was holding the little girl that I had, and they tried, all I would give them is my name and her name. And then I just says, I don't want to say anymore without a lawyer. And so, hence the big mix up of everything being all mothers and who they belong to and children and everything was a big mess because part of it was because we wouldn't talk. I forget the exact dates of how long we were in custody, but finally I was separated from this little girl. I'm going to get mixed up between Coliseum and Civic Center and all that kind of stuff. So wherever we were, they were taking all the children that didn't have their parents with them and that were a certain age and putting them in one place. So I was just a caretaker. I wasn't the biological mother of this child. So they were going to separate me from her at this time. And we went in, and one of the CPS workers tried to peel her away from me, and she hung on to me and grabbed me. And it was very, very stressful. I said, wait a minute here. And what they told me was that just let her take the child and you'll get to come back with her. And so to feel her resistance in getting pulled away from me, there was another FLDS girl. She wasn't even in our family, but she looked like us. And so I said, can I give her to this older girl? And they said, yes. So I handed the little one to this other girl. I had actually taught her in second grade there on the land. And so I knew who she was. And she took, so then the little one I was holding was okay with going to this person that she was used to. I mean, it looked like somebody she was used to. So they took me into this room, and I'll never forget, like, the picture is still in my mind. There's all these Texas Rangers with their hands on their hips and their cowboy hats on and guns on the side of them, just lining the walls. And I was devastated, and still always in my mind, what this little one's mama had said to me, don't let them take her from you. And they stepped up to me and said, we're going to have to ask you to come over here because you look like you're under 18. I was 24 years at the time, 24 years old. And so then I get this resistance that comes up. I'm not under 18. I have a license, and I was one of the few people that had a license with me to prove it. So I showed them my license. They decided it was okay. I know that some people, they wouldn't even believe their licenses, and they just kept them when they were adults. But then I was mad at myself because when my senses came to my head, if I had not shown them my ID, I could have gone back with the little girl.
Oh.
But I was under so much stress and who knows after that if they would have separated us again, because that big group of children did get farmed out to different places. But it just was a weight that I carried on my shoulder for a long time. You know, it wasn't my fault that she had to go through more trauma because I didn't answer the right thing and do the right thing.
I mean, you did the best that you could, and under so much pressure and in survival mode and defense mode.
Mm-hmm.
Did the little girl get reunited with her mom eventually?
Eventually she did, but what happened to her was she went with a big group of children to a certain place. And actually another one of Warren's ladies, she didn't have her ID to prove. So she was just 1 year younger than me, would have been 23. She had to stay in state custody, but she got to be there with that big group of children. It was one of the places that had the biggest group of them. Don't know the name right off the top of my head, but so she actually got a hold of this little girl and was able to take care of her through the whole experience of being separated from the mothers.